Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting order and start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with C2, report of actions taken in closed session. During closed session, the board acted to authorize the district superintendent or designee to terminate a classified employee holding the position of elementary school office manager from Santa Rosa City School District. There were no items considered in closed session for action in open session. C4, statements of abstention. C5, adjustments to the agenda. C6, board member requests for information. C7, approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on June 27, 2018.
So moved, adoption.
Second.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph? Director Fong? Aye. Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield? President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, bringing us to C8, public comment on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on issues not on the agenda. If you'd like to address the board on one of those issues, you can submit a blue card, and nobody has submitted one, so I'm going to move on. It brings us to reports. CSEA, President Afonso. I don't see anybody else for CSEA. Santa Rosa Teachers Association, President Lyon, I don't see. Any substitute, no pinch hitters? We're free? Taking the night off? Labor Management Collaborative report. Man, this could be record breaking, guys. Superintendent report. No report from the superintendent. This leaves me so much time for my board president report. How about this? I will hold off and say no report. We'll put it all in one. Board member reports. First of all, are you seeing the trend? Anybody? Director Christoph? Director Fong? Sheffield, Anderson, Director Pugh? No reports. CSBA, NSBA, Director Pugh?
No report.
Director Christoph?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, sorry. I love to hear you sigh like that. That's the only reason I said anything. So I just want to say that CSBA had a leadership conference in San Francisco recently, and Director Pugh and Director Anderson and I attended. It was a wonderful workshop. It started with a conversation about 6-8 months ago at the Delegate Assembly and at the Legislative Committee meetings, the need for CSBA to focus on more safety issues. There's an article in the Quarterly Journal now that is a very in-depth kind of report, a starting place. The workshop focused on that. It was in San Francisco. Also focused on STEM and computer science and the trend across the state and the need to expand this is very, very clear to me in our community from other board members. And so CSBA did a very, very, very fine job of focusing the board members that were there on these issues, and you'll hear more about this later. But anyway, it was a very productive workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Oh, there's one more thing. I just needed to see that. Thank you.
And another thing. Okay, so that brings us to the agenda, the consent agenda, but I need to pull E22 because we have a speaker card. So that means I need a motion on E1 through E21.
I'll move E1 to E22.
I'll second.
I'm going to need a motion from for E1 through E21.
21? Oh,
because I need to pull E22 because we have a speaker card.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
We're moving so quickly that.
Yeah.
So I need a motion for E1 through E21.
I move E1 through E21.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Director Sheffield, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong? Aye. Director Pugh? Aye. Director Anderson?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So it brings us to E22, it's approval of electronic marquee installation at Slater Middle School, Biella, Monroe, Lehman, and Lincoln Elementary, and I have the speaker card. Lindsay Rose.
Hi guys, sorry to ruin your trend of, no comments. I wasn't ready because I just ran a couple blocks and I thought I had time. So, I'm a little out of breath. I did just want to comment real quickly to make sure that, if we're going to get electronic marquees, to make sure that we are pulling the money out of the right place, because I feel that, there is money that we could use to be spending on school psychologists, and where I do think that the schools do need marquees, I think that some of them are totally old. I think that it's also worth looking into to make sure that it is being pulled out of the right place. Thank you.
Rick, do you want to address the funding stream for that?
Certainly, thank you. The funding for the marquees is funded either through Measure I or Measure L, our bond programs, depending on what school the marquee is being installed at. For 4 of the schools, it's the elementary school bond, and for Herbert Slater, it's the high school district bond.
Okay, so they're being funded from bond funds that fund only facilities and not from general fund. Thank you. All right, so I need a motion on E22.
So moved. 22.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, which brings us to the F agenda. I feel like we're owed a few of these short meetings, We paid our dues this spring, right? Okay, F1. The action item on accepting Measure I and L Citizens Oversight Committee annual reports.
Mike is your right-hand man. I'm appropriately seated to your left.
All right.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. Tonight, the Measure I and L Citizens Oversight Committee are presenting their annual report for acceptance by the board. To my left is Kristen Hendricks, who serves on both Measure I and L Citizen Oversight Committee, and as just was pointed out, my right-hand man who's on my right, Mike Baylor, is here, who also represents both Measure I and L on the Citizens Oversight Committee. In the board packet, included with the annual reports were also the 2 audit reports for each measure, which this year, again, we had no findings on either audit. At this point, I'm going to turn it over or ask Mike or Kristen if they want to say anything or go through any of the reports, and then we'll hand it over to you for acceptance. You don't have to.
I assume you guys reviewed them, so you don't need me just to go through the numbers. I mean, in general, you can see kind of what we've done this year. I mean, we've had quarterly meetings with the exception of after the fire, and we've reviewed the annual audit reports and all of the quarterly reports that have come from the school district and found everything to be in compliance. And so our report, we pretty much just state that, include some photos and stuff for the public to see kind of what kind of work's been going on. But in general, yeah, everything looks good.
Hi, Kristen Hendricks. I would like to thank Rick and Mike Braff and everybody else from the district. It's been a pleasure serving with them on this committee. We often just feel like there's so much going on and so much to celebrate with what this bond is enabling us to do to get our facilities more up to standard and take care of some things that have been in arrears as far as maintenance. So I hope we can continue the momentum that we've started gaining under Mike's direction and with Rick's leadership. So I'm optimistic that we will continue on our current positive track.
Sounds like she's saying that right before she resigns.
No!
No, just checking, yeah. That would be the one thing. We're still missing a couple of people that we really, we need a couple more committee members for sure. And then I want to thank Mindy Breslin was the one that prepared the main report and put all the kind of the pieces together that were provided by Rick. So thank her for that.
And we'll hand it over to the board for any questions or for acceptance.
Thank you. Director Christoph.
I want to thank the committee. When I looked at this and I went, my goodness, you know, we have people from the community putting their time into. This is a very important thing. It really is. It's very clear to me how we've spent the money. I mean, the process has, I think, been very, very good. And I've been through a couple of bond processes before as a teacher and looked at it from the outside. And anyway, this is, I appreciate what you've done. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little lobbying because I promised a couple people I would do this. So my question, Rick, is how much is unencumbered in our secondary bonds at this time? Approximately anything, you know.
Where's this one at? Oh, this is L.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. You might ask that same question. I'll get it.
About 55, or no, excuse me, with the recent selling of bonds in June, with what we have left unsold, we have about 110 million unencumbered.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next point, and without bad-mouthing any of our secondary or our high schools in terms of what they have gotten over the years, because every school is very deserving. I will point out to you that Montgomery High School is the second oldest high school in the district, and I know we have in plans a classroom building or buildings for Montgomery High School, and I promised my friends that I would bring that up, that they have not had any classroom building replacements since the school was built. So thank you very much.
And I will be happy to share with you, so you can share with your friends, that we will be bringing back to the board at one of the August meetings the next steps for the process for the new classroom building at Montgomery.
Director Fong.
Thank you for the help on the citizen oversight. Really, this is a labor of dedication and commitment to your community and to the school, so really appreciate it for you being on this committee for a long time now and probably time to come, so thank you. So I have a question, and I think also that the Citizen Oversight Committee is part of this. Diane, Rick. Each school created a master plan, and I'm looking at these kinds of orders that we have, you know, addition orders and change orders for what all the different reasons that they come up, legitimate reasons that they come up. How is that impacting the school, the individual schools? Because while the individual schools, and I'm sorry I don't understand this yet, but how do the individual schools have their priority lists? But how do we prioritize the individual schools? Kind of akin to what Director Christoph was talking about in terms of classrooms.
In terms of priorities, there was the implementation plan that was originally created at the meeting immediately following the approval of the facilities master plan. We brought that back. And just focusing on the high school district for a moment, one of the key tenets of Measure I, as well as Measure L, was warm, safe, and dry schools. So we've prioritized warm, safe, and dry, and at this point it's really HVAC and roofing at all of our schools. And going through that process, we're doing around $30 million of roofing and HVAC work this summer that will be completed in the next couple of weeks. Beyond that, there isn't a lot of extra dollars. There's some things that we'll do at all school sites. It's on the first page of the implementation plan for Measure I, but there won't be a lot of additional projects. Remember, the facilities master plan was created as a long-term roadmap, whereas bond dollars are very short-term. 7 to 10 years on average is when the length of the bond program. We're right on pace to be at that 8 or 9 year mark when this is all said and done, maybe 7 years, depending on how fast some projects go. And it was also through the facility master planning process, a little over $1.4 billion of need was determined with funding between both measures of $229 million. So we have a huge gap right there in terms of things, not only that we want to do at school sites, but what we need to do at school sites. Between some of the security, the technology, the roofing and HVAC is going to deplete the majority of both of these bonds. When we look at it between the two on the implementation plan, Measure I actually has, I'll call it, extra money in terms of warm, safe, and dry. We were able to budget out for warm, safe, and dry, providing roofing and some other amenities to all of our school sites. And that's where we got to pick up some additional projects that were brought to the board and voted on, such as the Carrillo Field, Pioneer Lights, the Montgomery Classroom Building Project. The elementary school, once we get done with warm, safe, and dry, is almost at zero. So we don't have a second page for that at this point that shows that these additional projects can be completed at these school sites. So that's how we're looking at it from warm, safe, and dry based on demonstrated need, either through assessment and or work orders, especially for roofing and HVAC, and then moving through those project lists trying to address the schools.
And the Oversight Committee has their eye on these kinds of decisions?
The Citizens Oversight Committee, much to the argument I get from these two, especially every meeting, their role is really tasked with, did we spend the money in accordance with ballot language?
Got it. Okay, got it.
Unfortunately, as part of this committee, they don't get to vote on or approve projects or expenditures before they happen. They get to look at expenditures after they happen and determine if they fell in the context of the ballot language.
So that's clearer for me on the word oversight. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to just say one quick thing and then, yes. I just want to say thank you for your service, and Ms. Hedricks, I was also somewhat concerned about your past tense language in your presentation, so I hope you're still with us. I shared Mr. Beeler's concern, and hopefully you're not abandoning us. I will say that I've been out actually looking for new members, and I spoke to a Rotary Club about investing in local schools recently, and someone said, but how do we know you're accountable? And I said, I've got a job for you. And I think it was within like 20 minutes at the end of the meeting, Rick had him signed up. So we're trying to bring in some reinforcements. I'll just have to, it's like 60 people in the audience and one guy wants to join. So I got to do a lot of fishing for your colleagues. But thank you so much for your work. It's, I'm sure, not super exciting, but it's really important.
And the membership is so specific. Especially for the elementary group, we've really struggled to find people who live within the boundaries of the elementary district and are on the senior citizens thing and the taxpayer thing, and let alone parents. So thank you for reaching out, and we've continued to try to spread the word and to glean some interest, but we kind of, to be honest, have struggled to have a quorum a lot of the time. So we're doing the best we can, and yeah, hopefully, we'll just do with whoever we have, but yeah, more folks would be helpful.
Yeah, well, thank you for your service.
I'll second that.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh? Director Fong? Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, F2, multi-agency active shooter training at Pioneer High School.
There's the dead giveaways. You can always peek.
Yeah, I tried to, but you didn't turn.
What was your name? Reynolds.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. Tonight we're bringing forward an item that I'm very excited about in terms of building community with our law enforcement, fire, and other community resource partners. But at the same time, it's unfortunate that we have to do this type of training. So with that, I have with me Trevor Collins from the fire department and Sergeant Rob Reynolds from Santa Rosa Police Department, who are here to assist me with talking about the joint, my mind just went blank, excuse me.
Active shooter.
Yeah, joint active shooter training that was brought forward about a month ago for the city of Santa Rosa that would take place on July 26th, July 31st, and August 3rd at Pioneer High School. As you see in the board report, a number of different agencies will be working with this endeavor to provide training at a school site. And I will turn it over to Travers if he has anything that he'd like to add to that, and then to Sergeant Rob Reynolds about the actual training and what is to be expected over the course of those 3 days.
Thank you for allowing us to speak here tonight. Just to give you an overview of the training we plan on doing, this will be a training that will incorporate Santa Rosa Fire Department, Santa Rosa Police Department, American Medical Response, which is our primary ALS service provider, advanced life support service provider here in town, as well as the Junior College Police Department. We currently find ourselves in a state of having to train on this, which is unfortunate, but as you guys know, this is happening more and more within our country and with many communities similar to the city of Santa Rosa. We have trained on this type of scenario 4 times previously. This will be the first time we're actively training in a school. Recently adopted is NFPA 3000, which addresses how we should function in this environment. And what it stresses is mutual training between police and fire resources, a unity of command, community outreach, and recovering from an incident like this. What this drill will do, it'll allow us to train cohesively with the Santa Rosa Police Department, establish a unified command, and really start to work within the community and work within our schools. So basically, I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the drill. I know some people, there's always some apprehension of us having to train on these type of incidents and having a large number of resources at your school, both police, fire, and EMS. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask away, and hopefully I can answer them.
Director Christoph.
I want to thank you very much for being here and doing what you're doing. 5 years ago, I would have said, find someplace else to go practice probably, because, there's things going on at the school. I don't feel that way anymore, and I really appreciate the idea that we are coming together as a community to take a look at this, because I think it's a community issue. Having different agencies involved with our schools and getting to know each other and understand what our needs are, I think is critical for any success that we have. And as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I attended, along with a couple of other directors, a leadership conference for the California Schools Boards Association, where safety was the main issue. And this has been floating around with school board members throughout the state for a long time. And what I've heard from so many people is you really need to build those relationships is important. So I think we're spot on in terms of what we're doing. I would say it's a first step. I think we have a lot of work to do. I don't have, what I understand from some people that have really had some long-term experience in this is that there is no set model for any particular school or community. So we'll be working on this together, and I welcome you and I thank you for what you're doing.
You bet. And one of the things that that NFPA 3000 does, it doesn't get into the tactical aspect of how this is supposed to be implemented, but what it does is it gives you basic guidelines. So with those being in place, it'll allow us to formulate our own tactics. And one of the big things and one of the big pushes, and the reason you're seeing this come about, this NFPA 3000, is if you look at some of the previous active shooter hostile events that have occurred, a lot of the fatalities have occurred within 7 to 10 minutes. And a lot of those fatalities occurred because past practice has been let police go in, contain the scene, isolate the shooter, or the shooter takes care of themselves, and then send police and EMS into what we deem the hot zone or warm zone to care for patients then after that subject has been isolated. What we're doing now is all our fire units are provided with ballistic protection, body armor, and helmets, which is a little change in the routine of what we normally do. But what we're doing now is we are going in right with the police department hand in hand to get our hands on those victims and to stop bleeding, provide tourniquets, open up their airways, and give them some extra time to get to the hospital to hopefully decrease that number of fatalities. So a change in what we normally do, but as the situation presents itself, we adapt to that, and that's why we're here today.
Director Anderson.
Yeah, in follow-up to what Director Christoph said, this talk that we went to at the CSBA Leadership Conference or Institute did emphasize how much we need now to have a lot of planning, and that we as a school district really need to tackle this head on. And I see that you say they're going to get joint communications to the community. I'm really curious to hear back from you when this is done, how it went, what were the really big issues that you came up against, and tell us more, because I think this needs to be a conversation that we keep going.
You bet. And normally when we do a large-scale drill like this drill has been kind of months in the making, and it's kind of catapulting off the drill. The last time we did a hands-on drill with the police department, we did it up at the old Sutter Hospital. So like I said, this is our first time in the school. But anytime we do a large-scale training like this, we do what's called an after-action report, and we want to make all these mistakes and learn all these lessons in training so it doesn't happen during a live event. So we do an after-action report, and I would 100% be open to you guys receiving that report. And also, one of the components of NFPA 3000 is community engagement. So we really want to start reaching out. Sergeant Reynolds is working on a program to work with the school resource officers and potentially reach out to every school and to get them on board with this, just because ideally what we could do is have something, just like everyone knows what to do during a fire drill, everybody's going to know what to do in case it's an active shooter event. Like I said, it's sad we have to do this, but right now it's required and mandatory and good practice that we do.
Right, and I hear from a lot of parents that this is a super big issue of concern, and also from students. I now hear students say that they don't go into an assembly without thinking about, how do I get out if a shooter comes in?
And that's really good forward thinking. It's sad, but to have that situational awareness, being a parent of 2 younger kids, I have that conversation with them. So if that's something that can start at home and can go into can go and be reinforced by teachers, then I say that's a win in my eyes.
Great. Well, I'll look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, you bet.
Director Fong.
Thank you. I'm really glad you're doing this. So as someone who ran a high school for a long time, it wasn't a single day that I didn't think about keeping everyone safe, even before math, right, or English. First of all, we're notifying the Pioneer community, right, so they know what's going on.
There'll be a media release out tonight, sent out after this meeting. We won't just confirm that we're still doing it at Pioneer. And then there'll be a Nixle sent out in the morning.
And then the SROs will be heavily involved?
Correct. As well our PI, our public information officers, from fire, from police, and yeah.
So I'm thinking about what you just said, where you're going in and you're looking at kids or whoever the victims are and taking care of them quickly. But really, when, we've trained for earthquake and fire and lockdown, but we really haven't trained for active shooter on site, because active shooter on site is in the first seconds, the first minutes, and you guys aren't there yet.
Right.
So I don't know where we are on that. I just don't know.
And I think that in the future, I think that that's something that the SROs can reach out and help provide that, provide that training. Yeah.
I could speak to that. Again, thanks for having us here tonight. So our department's heavily involved with the SROs and getting them trained for active shooter. As a training manager, I take that to heart. That's been one of my biggest goals, is to reach out to the schools. Chief Collins and I have worked very hard to put this together with all the stakeholders involved. So they're attending, the SROs have all attended active shooter training. So that's something that we're going to continue to involve and hopefully bring it more into the schools with the students.
So the SROs know about that, but the SROs are not always on campus. And
most of the administrators have gone through active shooter training. Mm-hmm. In reality, what it is at this point is a lockdown. Until we have a strategy, until we have plans, multi-agency plans together to determine the next steps for the school at this point, lockdown is the thing that we have to do. So,
and I think everybody knows how to do the lockdown.
They do. They've got it down like that. So.
Yeah, and Public Safety Training Institute puts on training for school board members, teachers, administrators. We were going to host it. The fires came. We weren't able to host it. That's something we're going to bring back. So it's open. It's free training. It's a 4-hour block training put on by this group. They're a fantastic group. So we're looking to bring that back to Santa Rosa so everybody can get involved and attend it.
Thank you very much.
Director Sheffield.
You had mentioned that you did one other joint training exercise up at the old Sutter site. Is that, and that's the only other time that you guys have done it?
Well, we've had some classrooms, so we've laid out the guidelines in the classroom. We've adopted as a fire department, we've adopted an active shooter policy on how we're going to operate in that warm zone and how we're going to operate collaboratively with the PD. So we did have a classroom portion. This is just from the fire side. We had the classroom portion. We had 2 in-field exercises at the fire training tower and at the old water agency, just basically working on movement within that warm zone and working with side by side with PD. The police department moves a separate way than we move. We're not used to going in those environments, so we're usually head down, going in. So it just basically taught us cover, concealment, and moving from a tactical standpoint. So we were at the water and sea, at the fire tower, in the classroom, and then we had a joint drill at Sutter Hospital. So it's actually been 4 drills so far that we have done this. Like I said, this is the largest drill because it's incorporating AMR, it's incorporating our dispatch center, it's incorporating police, fire, and the junior college police department. So this is the largest exercise so far and our first time in a school.
Which I think highlights the importance of doing this type of joint agency endeavor. Going back to the incident at Columbine, which I think, even that was years ago, was probably the first time it really brought in recent years this school shooting incident up to the forefront of people's minds. Of course, prior to Columbine, there were school shootings, but I think Columbine seemed to have been, in this era, sort of started a whole new, I don't want to say a trend, but
right.
Awareness, absolutely. And when I was in graduate school, we looked at the case study on Columbine, and what was found determined to be that all first responders were very fortunate and very lucky because there was no cross-channel communication. This was an incident that nobody was familiar with. Police arrived on the scene, handled it one way. Police from a different county arrived on the scene, handled it another way. Fire and other first responders came onto the scene and they responded. Nobody knew what was going on. There was no cross-channel communication. They were on different frequencies. There was no communication at all. And what stood out in this study was the reports from those first responders saying, we are so lucky that we didn't fire upon ourselves, each other, because we came into an incident where it was dark, where the lights were strobing, where sprinkler systems were on, where absolute chaos, magnetic door locks were closing. They were thinking it was gunfire. It was echoing through a school where everybody's on lockdown. So having, just knowing, I mean, what came out of that report, and then knowing that this is a joint agency practice, how important that is. It's never been done in our schools, so bringing it to our schools and maybe then bringing it onto campuses as well, so that when there are lockdown and lockdown trainings, that it's not just your typical lockdown, that everybody goes into that crisis mode. Everybody knows how to respond, everybody knows where to be, everybody knows when to freeze, when to get down, when to stay low, all of that. So I think this is really important, really necessary, and the timing is perfect on it. Great, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the report and for your efforts. It's really important work that you're doing, and you know, I echo Director Sheffield's and Director Fong's and Christoph's, support for doing this multi-agency training, and it's really good. One of the things that I think, and you probably is already on your radar, but I just need to say it because it's kind of a big issue for me, is that, some of our classrooms have security locks, Columbine locks, some of them don't, and same throughout all of the districts. Most of the smaller districts are, but I think we are moving towards getting them all done, but they won't be done for some months. So I think that's just an important part of the consideration in your operations to know, is that some teachers can lock from inside and some got to run out to the hall into potential danger to do that. So just something to be thinking about in your drilling.
And that's good. And see, so like those idiosyncrasies between schools are good things to find out as we go into those schools.
Right.
We know that. And that's just, goes back to, kind of what we talked about is we make those errors in training, we find those discoveries out in training. That way we don't have a roadblock or a setback during an actual event, which hopefully never happens.
Yeah, thank you. Director Fong.
Thank you, President Close. I just want to say out loud, in public, thank you, SRPD, for our school resource officers. They do a really good job. They are well trained. They're responsive to their school communities, and
thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
We love them.
As you move forward and what we learned from the fire, that incident command or uniform incident command didn't have anybody from the schools at incident command. And so I want to be sure that we have someone representing the school district within that group that's going to be in incident command. That's one thing. The second thing, this is an action item. And so I would go from there.
I move this forward.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Anderson. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, F3, approval of resolution of district capacity for inter-district transfers.
President Close, board members, Superintendent Kitamura, for your action tonight is a resolution, and it's the first time we've taken this resolution to the board. It's been an operational practice in CWA and SAFE, determining capacity limits for inter-district permits. One of the restrictions on an ability of a family to come into Santa Rosa is availability. We've had operational numbers that we've been using for the last few years. We're operationalizing those into a resolution that was recommended by the County Office of Education.
Questions or comments from the board? Director Fong.
Hello.
Hi.
On the resolution, number 1, now therefore be it resolved, if you go further down the page. For secondary schools, the grade level capacity shall be determined by 90% of the school's capacity based on section allocations assigned to that site.
Yes.
So Assistant Superintendent Missouri, where in this resolution does it have anything to do with spatial capacity of a school?
Physical spatial capacity? That's based on the capacity that's designed by the facilities plan of how much capacity is at a school per square foot. So as an example, there are numbers for each school site about what their maximum capacity is by that. This is more nuanced than that, and so in the section allocation, what that refers to is if there's a ninth grade request to come in, if there's not 90% of space in ninth grade sections, then we'll deny that request. So there could be room on the campus in terms of the macro analysis, say the number in the facilities is 1650 for Carrillo High School. So they could have room in that capacity, but not at ninth grade. So we're analyzing that, just like we do at elementary, we're analyzing it by grade level. A third grade request coming in, there must be space in third grade. The school may have capacity at the macro level, but in the space of the grade level, there is not.
And that's a very good thing. I understand that piece of it. Are the section allocations related then to physical capacity of the school?
No, section allocation is related to enrollment. That is brought in from HR and the business as they determine enrollment of students that are attendance, students that are there.
But enrollment is based on the capacity of the school. So
always.
Yeah, so it is based on capacity for enrollment.
They're linked
right?
somewhere.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Remember, this is inter-district transfer acceptance, so.
Right, these are out of district. Right, and in our new process, we process all district families first, and then what remains, so that the time frame goes from October 1 till November 16th, and then when that settles in, the inter-district enrollment process begins in February, and that's what this is referring to.
thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I'd like to move item F3.
Second.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. F4, action item revision to board bylaw 9220, Board of Education elections.
Okay, so we are bringing forward the board, this board item bylaw. As you can see on the attachments, there is a version that indicates or shows the edits in red, and then also the clean up version. This is based on specifically the changes that we have undertaken with regard to elections.
Thank you.
And this was reviewed by legal counsel.
Questions or comments from the board? Director Christoph.
Yeah, we had, and I'm trying to find it, I'm sorry, I should have marked it down here. We talk about the ballot, paying for the ballot anyway, and in there, if somebody can guide me to where that is. And we talk about the 200 words. We had a conversation about the 400, but in there it says that we will pay for the 200 words for the ballot, but it doesn't say that it's both in English and Spanish. We had agreed as a board at one time to do that, and I'd like to make sure that language is in there.
That's it. Yeah. Right. It says translating, right, in statement of qualifications. Printing, handling, translating, and mailing.
Or is that, yeah, that's the clean, okay. I'm sorry, that's in there, I beg your pardon.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Director Pugh?
In the future, down the road sometime, it'd be nice to have an agreement between the registrar of voters and our district as to what the name of our district is. because we are Santa Rosa City Schools, but on the ballot, we're Santa Rosa High School District. And they won't allow us to use area 1, 2, 3 as the identifier. So I don't know how it gets changed, but at some point it would be nice to just be called Santa Rosa City Schools, which is what we really are.
Well, that is true, and the legal entity is high school district and then elementary school district, but then it's as if the elementary school district is never elected because they only have the high school district, which is confusing as well. So that maybe that is discussion we can have.
I will ask legal counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Anybody else? It's an action item.
I move. Go ahead. Revision to board bylaws 9220, Board of Education Elections.
Second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Oh yeah, so
New record.
this is